Chris Carter couldn't believe it. A rookie quarterback, still improving in the NFL, turning down millions from the league. For veteran players raised on the idea that respect had to be earned through years of compliance, Shedeur Sanders' move felt reckless. But behind that decision is a longer story, one where Sanders isn't just Deion's son, but a strategic mind raised in a media-savvy world. The Nike deal? It's the latest step in a carefully planned path. If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed. One that's less about football and more about framing the future. With each choice, Sanders is redrawing the blueprint for athlete success. He's blending business acumen with cultural fluency, choosing ownership over obedience. And it's working. In locking down deals that prioritize equity and creative input, he's bypassing gatekeepers entirely. The league isn't panicking over one lost deal. It's scrambling to stay relevant in a world where players no longer need its spotlight to shine. The NFL just got a wake-up call. It came in the form of a 21-year-old quarterback saying no thanks to a $2 million contract. Shedeur Sanders, son of Deion Sanders, just turned the sports world upside down by rejecting what most athletes would consider a dream deal and instead locking in a $100 million endorsement contract with Nike. One move, one decision. And suddenly the entire NFL rookie system is under fire. But this isn't just about numbers. It's about leverage. Shedeur didn't reject the contract because he was being difficult. He rejected it because it didn't match the value he's already created for himself. The old playbook says you enter the league quietly, take the rookie deal, work your way up, and maybe you'll start seeing brand money down the line. But Shedeur already is the brand. And when your personal reach, your cultural relevance, and your digital influence are outpacing your potential rookie salary, taking that $2 million isn't a step forward. It's a step down. This wasn't a gamble. It was a calculated business move by someone who understands the economics of modern fame. Shedeur knows that his name, image, and likeness don't belong to the NFL. They belong to him. And in today's media landscape, that's a bigger asset than any one franchise can offer. Let's talk about that Nike deal. We're not just looking at a standard endorsement contract here. This is a strategic, likely equity-based partnership. Nike isn't treating Shedeur as a marketing tool. They're treating him like a collaborator. There's probably creative input. There's probably profit sharing. This is a type of structure that turns athletes into long-term business partners, not just faces on a billboard. And it's not the first time Shedeur has made a move like this. His Gatorade deal already included an equity clause. That kind of foresight isn't accidental. That's a young athlete sitting down with a legal team, looking at his value and saying, how do I make this last? It's startup-level thinking. It's wealth building in real time. And it's redefining what getting paid actually looks like. Because a one-time check might look great on paper. But equity, ownership, that pays you forever. And this is where things start to break for the NFL. Because when Shedeur walked away from that contract, he wasn't just making a personal choice. He was exposing how outdated the league's rookie system has become. For years, the NFL has operated on the assumption that its platform is enough, that the exposure it gives players justifies the lopsided deals, the limited control, the lack of flexibility. But that assumption only works when the league is the only path to success. And right now, it's not. Social media flipped that dynamic years ago. Today's athletes don't need a team's approval to build a fan base. They don't need TV networks to generate buzz. One well-timed post, one viral moment, one endorsement drop, and they've created more cultural capital than a season's worth of Sunday coverage. Shedeur Sanders is the living proof. He's not just a quarterback. He's a brand architect. He's the embodiment of the athlete SEO model. Someone who understands that his presence, his voice, and his narrative have value beyond the field. And he's not trading that value for a starter contract and a pat on the back. This is what makes traditionalists uncomfortable, because they want athletes to focus on the game, to stay in their lane, to be grateful, especially young, black athletes who push back on the system. It's why the moment someone like Shedeur says no, the backlash gets loud. Suddenly he's not respecting the league, He hasn't proved himself. He's thinking about business too early. But these aren't critiques, they're deflections. Ways to ignore the very real shift happening across sports and entertainment. A shift where athletes are no longer content to be employees. They want to be partners. They want to be owners. They want to negotiate terms, not just accept them. And when someone actually does it, when they pull it off like Shedeur just did, it threatens the whole hierarchy. Because if he can do it, others can too. That's what the NFL's really afraid of. Not one rookie saying no, but many rookies realizing they can. Because let's be clear, this is a turning point. Shedeur's decision didn't just make headlines. It created a blueprint. For every high school star with a social media following, for every college athlete navigating nil deals, for every player who's been told to be quiet and wait their turn. He didn't wait, and it worked. Now, executives are panicking. If rookies start walking into negotiations already financially secure, already backed by brands, already building equity portfolios, how do you control them? How do you dictate terms? How do you keep them dependent? You don't. You adapt or you get left behind. And the adaptation isn't just financial. It's cultural. It's systemic. It means offering deals that include collaboration. It means acknowledging player influence beyond the stat sheet. It means recognizing that the league doesn't create value. It shares it. Or at least, it needs to start doing that. Because Shedeur Sanders just proved that when a player understands their value, they don't need to settle. Not for exposure. Not for permission. Not for a contract that undervalues what they've already built. And yes, the risk is real. Shedeur hasn't played a snap in the NFL yet. There's no guarantee his pro career will match the size of this deal. But that's not the point. The point is, he bet on himself before the league had the chance to define his ceiling. And whether or not he becomes a superstar, he's already made history by changing what's possible for those who come after him. This is what progress looks like. Messy, polarizing, loud. But it's also inevitable. We're not going back to the days where athletes wait to be discovered. We're not going back to the era where brand deals are just side hustles. We're in a new world now, one where athletes are media, where they're producers of their own stories, where their brand is the product. And Shedeur, he's not just part of that wave. He's leading it. He's forcing a generational reckoning between the old model of talent exploitation and the new model of talent empowerment, between the league that used to hold all the cards and the players now reshuffling the deck. So what's next? More scrutiny, more copycats, more headlines, but also more freedom, more creative control, more ownership. And if the NFL doesn't evolve, it risks becoming the backup plan instead of the main event. Let us know what you think. Did Shedeur Sanders just spark a revolution, or did he step too far ahead of the game? Is this the beginning of a new era for player power, or just a one-off anomaly? Drop a comment. Hit that like button if this story blew your mind. And subscribe if you want to keep tracking the drama, power plays, and plot twists reshaping sports and culture right before our eyes. Because if this is where the future is headed, we're all going to need a front row seat. Let's keep it real. No matter where you stand on Shedeur Sanders' headline-making rejection of the NFL's $2 million offer, one thing is undeniable. The silence from the league is deafening. Because when a rookie quarterback turns down generational wealth and immediately secures 50 times that in a single Nike endorsement, and the NFL doesn't even flinch publicly, that's not confidence. That's containment. That's panic control. That's scrambling to keep the house from catching fire while pretending everything's fine. But behind the scenes, this isn't fine. Not even close. This moment exposed the NFL's deepest fear, that the league no longer holds exclusive access to fame, influence, or wealth. For the first time in a long time, the NFL is dealing with a generation of athletes who don't just know their value. They're ready to act on it without permission. Shedeur Sanders is just the first to put in motion at this scale. He made his choice, stood by it, and let the numbers speak for themselves. And whether the league wants to acknowledge it or not, the ripple effect is already in motion. Because when one player flips the system, it gives others permission to stop playing along. Let's go back to that $2 million rookie deal. For years, that's been considered an incredible opportunity. And on paper, sure, it's a big number. But in this current climate, in a world where brand power can earn you six figures from a single sponsored post, that $2 million starts to look less like a breakthrough and more like a low-stakes buy-in for full control of your image. That's what Shedeur saw. He didn't walk away from money. He walked away from the strings attached to that money. Because let's not pretend rookie contracts are just about football. They come with assumptions, with media expectations, with limitations on what you can say, how you can brand yourself, how you move publicly. The NFL might not write those rules into the paperwork, but culturally, they've always been there. And Shedeur, he didn't want the discount or the leash. He understood that what he brings to the table isn't just touchdowns and passing yards. It's clout. It's reach. It's an audience that buys in not just his talent, but to his story. That's what Nike bought. Not a quarterback. A narrative. A next-generation athlete who knows how to blend legacy, charisma, and media fluency into cultural capital. A player who isn't just part of the game, but part of the culture around it. A person who can drive trends, not just jersey sales. Nike didn't hand him $100 million because they love football. They handed him that deal because they know where influence lives, and it lives where attention goes. And right now, Shedeur owns attention. This is why the deal is so groundbreaking, because it didn't happen after a championship or after pro season. It happened before he ever played a single NFL down. That timeline shift, that's what's rattling every front office in the league. Because if deals like this can happen before the draft, then the draft no longer holds the power it used to. And that's a dangerous precedent for a league built entirely around the illusion of scarcity. See, the NFL has thrived by keeping rookies humble, by setting a pay structure that says, earn your place, even when the league itself is earning billions off those players' early moments. The balance of power has always leaned in one direction. Shedeur just tilted it back. And now every GM, scout, and executive has asked themselves, what happens when other rookies do the same? What happens when the next generation stops seeing the NFL as a gate and starts seeing it as an optional platform? Because let's be clear, this generation isn't waiting for ESPN to tell their story. They have TikTok. They have Instagram. They have YouTube, Twitch, podcasts. They're already stars before they ever enter a stadium. They don't need middlemen. They don't need polished media training. They've been broadcasting their own narratives since high school. Shedeur is the prototype of that shift. The athlete as media company. The player as platform. And what's wild is that some people still think he should have taken the deal. But think about what that would have meant. Signing a contract that undercuts your value just to be in the league. Choosing structure over scale. Choosing tradition over transformation. Shedeur said no. And that no changed everything. It wasn't arrogant. It wasn't disrespectful. It was strategic. And more than that, it was symbolic. It signaled that a new era has arrived, where athletes aren't just grateful to be included. They're ready to negotiate, to lead, and to walk if the offer doesn't match the value. And let's not ignore the racial dynamic here. Because when confident black athletes claim space, the backlash is always louder. It's why some fans and analysts can't stop calling this move entitled, while completely ignoring the business intelligence behind it. But this isn't new. We've seen it with Cam Newton. We've seen it with LeBron James, with Serena Williams, with Colin Kaepernick. Every time a black athlete speaks with too much certainty or moves with too much independence, the response is swift. Know your place. But Shedeur didn't just break that expectation. He refused to play into it at all. And in doing so, he forced an entire industry to confront its double standards. Because when white athletes negotiate hard, they're called smart, strategic, professional. When Shedeur does it, the conversation shifts to humility and focus. But what if confidence is focus? What if knowing your value and acting on it is professionalism? It's not about skipping steps. It's about redefining them. And now that it's been done once, it will be done again. The playbook just got rewritten. And the NFL can either update its system or keep trying to convince players that their power only starts after the draft. Spoiler, that myth is dead. Shedeur Sanders killed it with one decision. So now the question isn't whether he'll succeed in the NFL. The question is, what's the league going to do about it? Will they adapt? Will they start meeting players where they are? Will they offer deals that account for brand equity, digital reach, and long-term vision? Or will they keep pretending their platform is the only one that matters? Because here's the truth. If the NFL doesn't catch up, they're going to keep losing control over the narratives, the talent, and the influence that drives their product. Shedeur's move wasn't just about the bag. It was about independence. It was about making a choice that said, I won't shrink myself to fit your system. And whether or not he goes on to break records, he's already made history. Let's not sugarcoat this. What Shedeur Sanders just did is more than a contract decision. It's a generational fork in the road. One path is tradition. The other is transformation. And Shedeur didn't hesitate. He didn't blink. He chose the latter, then kicked the door wide open behind him. The NFL thought they had time. Time to adjust to the ripple effects of NIL. Time to figure out how to reassert control as college players became millionaires before they even hit the draft board. But now, that time's gone. The ripple has become a wave, and Shedeur is the one riding it straight through their front offices. Let's be honest. There's no going back from this. Once a high-profile college quarterback turns down a $2 million contract without a second thought and immediately signs a $100 million deal with a global powerhouse like Nike, the narrative shifts forever. The idea that a rookie should work their way up is officially exposed for what it often is: institutional convenience, not meritocracy, not humility, control over the athlete's brand, behavior, and bargaining power. And what makes this moment explosive is that Shedeur rejected that model publicly. He said no to it all, and then doubled down by aligning himself with a brand that's been at the center of athlete empowerment for decades. Nike isn't just a sports company. They're a cultural engine, and they've made it very clear. They don't see Shedeur as a prospect. They see him as a partner. That changes the tone. Because Nike doesn't do this often. This isn't just a sneaker deal. This is legacy shaping. This is infrastructure building. You don't get 9 figures from Nike unless they think you're about to move product and culture. Unless they see you as a multi-industry force. Unless they believe you can sell not just shoes, but identity. And Shedeur fits that mold perfectly. He's not afraid to speak. He's not afraid to post. He's not afraid to walk away from safe opportunities. And that's precisely what makes him so powerful right now. Because while the league debates whether he's ready, the market has already answered. Not only is he ready, he's already valuable. It's uncomfortable, sure, because it's a hard reset on everything the sports industry has taught players for decades. You no longer have to prove your value through the league. You can establish your value before the league and use that leverage to negotiate differently, or to not negotiate at all. That's what makes this moment so disruptive. Because now, every athlete with a platform is going to ask the same question. Do I really need to sign that contract? Do I need to take that offer just because it's the way it's done? And if you're the NFL, that's a terrifying question. Because the answer increasingly is no. And let's not gloss over how rare it is for a 21-year-old to even think like this. The fact that Shedeur negotiated equity into his Gatorade deal, that alone is next level. That's a young athlete treating endorsement deals like venture capital. Not just short-term income, but long-term wealth. We're talking about residuals, ownership, creative control. It's the kind of deal-making that usually happens in boardrooms, not locker rooms. But Shedeur's not trying to fit the traditional mold of a football player. He's shaping something entirely new, a hybrid identity that blends athlete, entrepreneur, and brand strategist. And in case it wasn't clear, he's good at it. Because he's not just securing these deals. He's driving the conversation. Every headline, every tweet, every debate, it all circles back to his move. And the league can't ignore it. Not because they want to, but because they can't afford to. If this becomes a new model, the entire rookie structure collapses. Because what happens when other players realize they don't have to take whatever's offered? What happens when they start building their own leverage instead of waiting for a draft pick to decide their worth? The game flips, the power shifts, and the lead becomes just one of many options. We've already seen pieces of this in other industries. Independent musicians bypassing labels, filmmakers creating direct-to-streaming empires, influencers turning their followings into full-scale businesses. What Shedeur did is bring that same autonomy to the most guarded institution in American sports, and it hit like an earthquake. And let's be honest, the pushback was predictable. Too soon. Too flashy. Stay humble. Those are the same phrases thrown at any athlete, especially black athletes, who dare to show confidence and financial literacy in the same breath. It's coded language, a thinly veiled attempt to remind someone of their place. But Shedeur's not shrinking himself for anyone. He's not here to be polite about his potential. He's not waiting for someone else to determine when he can cash in on the brand he built. And that terrifies the people who benefit most from the old way of doing things. Because they know, once athletes stop asking for permission, the game will never be the same. This is where things get even more real. Because Shedeur's move isn't just about football. It's part of a much larger cultural shift happening across sports, entertainment, fashion, and tech. A shift where creators and talent aren't satisfied with exposure. They want ownership, equity, voice. You see it in the music industry with artists demanding royalties and masters. You see it in Hollywood with actors forming production companies to control their own stories. You see it in fashion with collaborations that go beyond sponsorship into co-creation. And now, you see it in sports with a quarterback who isn't waiting for his moment to start building an empire. He is the moment, and the ripple effect? It's just getting started. Colleges will now have to consider how to prepare athletes for this new landscape. Agents will need to rethink how they pitch to brands. Leagues will be forced to confront the fact that the value proposition they've sold for decades is diminishing. And maybe most importantly, young athletes are watching. High schoolers, freshmen, sophomores. They're seeing this play out in real time, and they're taking notes. They're watching Shedeur say no to a $2 million contract and not only survive, but thrive. They're watching the biggest sportswear company in the world say, "We believe in your vision more than the league does." And they're realizing something massive. They don't have to wait for permission either. So now the NFL is left trying to reframe, trying to figure out how to keep control in an ecosystem where the players are becoming more powerful than the teams, where the brand isn't just a jersey, it's the person wearing it. And that's the revolution Shedeur just accelerated. Whether or not he throws a single touchdown in his first season, this will be remembered as the moment everything changed. Because this wasn't just a business move, it was a message. A loud, clear, unapologetic reminder that the next generation of athletes isn't here to play by the old rules. They're here to break them, to rewrite them, to own them. And Shedeur Sanders? He just wrote page one. So what do you think? Is this the smartest deal we've seen in sports history? Is Shedeur carving out a new model, or breaking one that still has value? Drop your take in the comments. Hit that like button if this shook your view of how the sports world works. And subscribe if you want to stay locked into the chaos, the culture, and the comeback stories that are rewriting the rules, one bold move at a time.